Lesson 11. This lesson may or may not be done depending on time constraints, but this is the function's make. At the conclusion of this, you'll be able to recognize the need for a function to reduce repeated code while developing a functional app. You should recognize before you just haven't done the creating of an app. You'll be able to implement a function using programming patterns while developing a functional app. And you'll be able to write comments to clearly explain both the purpose and function of different segments of code within an app. You're going to be able to use your debugging skills as part of developing an app. Now, without further ado, for the past few lessons, we have learned a lot about using functions to simplify code and make it easy to edit. So far, we have learned how to use functions to remove repeated code in our programs. Early on, it's common to realize you need a function only after you've completely written the same chunk of code in two places. As you get better, however, you'll realize sooner and sooner in the process, in your design process, that you're likely going to need a function. And you will be able to avoid writing repeated code before putting it inside a function. Eventually, you will want to anticipate what your functions are going to be even before you start programming. These are the during and before levels we read about or talked about in our last lesson. In today's make lesson and the following project, you'll have a chance to practice this. See if sometimes you can work that during or before category. Now, first thing, we're going to look at a quote maker. It's a beautiful day. Okay, functions quote maker. Do this. Go to Unit 4, Lesson 11, and Level 2. Right here where it says you're going to run it, and then right where it says quote, type in a quote. Could just be a couple of words, whatever you like. Then play around with the font, the color, and the size slider. See what it does. Try many of the different options. Pay attention to what is happening on the screen when you move the slider or choose an item from the drop-down. When does the screen update? What happens if you choose lavender and Lucinda Sands from the drop-downs? Try choosing light green and moving the slider until you receive a different feedback. You should then be able to say, what does this app do? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? And how could a function be used in this app? Pause and take about 5 minutes to play with the app and jot down your answers. Okay, now in response to those answers, what does this app do? Well, this app displays a quote with user-defined fonts and background colors. What are the inputs? Well, the drop-downs for background color and font family, the quote text field, and the slider to generate the font size. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 inputs. What are the outputs? The fully designed quote displayed at the bottom of the screen. How could a function be used in this app? Well, a function could be used to update the screen. A function contains the conditional that is checked every time the user interacts with the screen. Now, at this point, you're going to make the quote maker. It's a very short lesson because the idea is that the bulk of the time during class will be spent on making the quote maker. So you want to take about 40 minutes. If you take 45 minutes to an hour, that's fine. You should not take longer than that. If you're taking a lot longer than that, you might want to stop, save your code, and in the next class, I will be providing you with an example solution. It won't necessarily be exactly like yours because my variable names may be different than your variable names. But regardless, it will be a quote maker, and you'll be able to see where you have updates, where you have functions, etc. Work through your activity guide. It will help you to design and write your code. Again, 40 minutes, no more than an hour. Before you submit, if this is an item to be submitted, be sure to check the rubric. Okay, extensive evidence on events are created for all required inputs, storage of variables, code, the conditionals, the functions, runs without errors, coding comments. Okay, you should have comments in your code that say what your code is doing. And then you would submit on code.org. Now, as a wrap, if you manage to make a working quote maker, fantastic. Great job. But now don't forget to complete the AP, CSP, U4, L11 homework. It's just a few short problems, again, to help prepare you for that summative coming up.